On this episode of VLGA Connect, we're catching up with Tanja Kovac, who is the consulting CEO of Gender Equity Victoria. Tanja has pulled together more than 50 organisations to sign a joint statement calling on governments to recognise the gendered impacts of COVID-19. And we talk about that process and some early successes on our VLGA Connect episode today. A pleasure to have on VLGA Connect today the consulting CEO of Gender Equity Victoria, Tanja Kovac. Tanja, welcome.
Good morning, Chris.
Lovely to speak with you, and congratulations on your gender equity and COVID-19 joint statement. There must have been a power of work going into getting, I think, 50 organisations to come into that statement with you.
Believe it or not, Chris, we are just shy of 80 right now. Wow. So we have been overwhelmed and thrilled with the response that we've had to that statement. We wanted to bring together gender equality organisations from across the state of Victoria, and in fact some of our signatories are actually national as well, because it's very obvious that women are playing an enormously significant role at the front line of pandemic response. Whether you look at the professional roles that have suddenly gone from being fairly marginalised and often low paid work, such as early childcare, retail, and even teachers, who are now really the essential service workers. They are keeping significant parts of our economy going. Without them, we wouldn't be able to have functional workplaces or to enable our nursing and medical professions to do the important work that they're doing. And of course, those observations haven't even extended to the enormous role that largely a female nursing staff will be performing in ICU units across hospitals in Victoria and the country.
So as we record this on the 9th of April, I think it's less than a week since your joint statement was presented to the world, and you've had some very early success. Can you tell us about how the childcare outcome came about so quickly?
Look, I think it's really significant that the organisations that signed on to the statement called for free childcare, prioritised to essential service workers, and we knew that only the Commonwealth could unlock that possibility. So we had given government an early view of that request, of the entire top 10 things that we thought government could do at a state level. So we were thrilled to see that the Commonwealth, within hours of us releasing that statement and doing our joint press conference, make that announcement.
You must have been stunned to get a response that quickly.
Look, I think, yes, I do. I was. And I think, I'd love to lay complete claim to it. I think, obviously, there was quite a bit of work that was being done behind the scenes to make an announcement like that happen, because you're talking about an enormous investment in a sector that has long not received investments of that nature. So, but I think it makes a difference when gender equality organisations are organised and effective and they come together to put a position to government. I don't think we've seen enough of that, and I'm very proud of Gender Equality Victoria's leadership in that space.
Is it sad in a way that it takes a COVID-19 unprecedented situation such as this to bring about that sort of action so quickly and with such immediate priority?
I think that in the gender equity space, we suffer usually from being considered an also-ran issue in government. And I think what this pandemic is exposing is the inherent risks that are associated with not applying a gender lens to all policy and planning. It's very, very clear to me that the pandemic plans that were in existence did not apply a gender lens. So they did not canvass the implications on care work if you had mass lockdowns in people's home, stay-at-home orders. I mean, that
Yes.
is going to have implications for schooling, early childhood, and then have a flow-on effect economically. And I think the big thing is it's the connection between things that look like they are just easy gender equality investments or things that are just for women. That's not the case. These are essential services, essential activities that underpin the entire economic framework of the country. And we've been dismissing childcare like it is a little thing on the side that benefits women who otherwise would be staying at home looking after the kids. No, it is fundamental to the Australian economy, and it needs to be invested appropriately. We need to tweak various aspects of fiscal and economic policy to make it possible that childcare is working to benefit all people. It's not just a women's issue, it's an economic issue. And I hope there are so many, I know I won't be the only CEO of a community organisation that hopes that through the learnings of pandemic response and COVID-19, that governments start to look at what is actually successful policy, look at things that have changed and fundamentally been changed by this experience and hold on to them. There is an opportunity for us to revision and to keep gender and these essential workforces which are largely female dominated in the centre of our economic activity.
Yeah. Interesting observation that lens hadn't been applied to pandemic planning, and in hindsight it's also blindingly obvious now, isn't it? Interested in what you see as success going forward now. What other things are you hoping might come from this piece of work that you've done with so many other organisations?
Well, I think it's significant that really overnight yesterday, we had the federal government support its job seeker package. So that third stimulus package, which has been supported and passed at the government level, still misses out on a significant workforce, and that workforce is largely gendered. So that casual, less than 12 months connection to a workplace workforce, who do we think that is? That is women who are returning to work after they've looked after children. It's women who take short-term contracts that fit into school hours. These are our most precarious workers, and it'll be women that are impacted. So I'll be looking for a fourth stimulus package that addresses that gap, that actually looks at how this is a gendered issue. The other thing that I think is really interesting is we are asking parents and we are asking carers to perform high levels of care work and even education work in their own homes. We're looking at, I've got 2 children, and I'm looking at an entire second term where I'll be educating a year 7 and a grade 6 student in my house. There are costs associated with that. There are challenges for me as a parent working at home. Once again, if you put a gendered lens on that, you would think that there should be some economic stimulus to support families, and what will largely be, I would say to you, working mothers who will be preparing and helping schools with rolling out the in-school support for those students. So we have also called in that statement for a contribution to be made to the education costs of families in the home. We think that's fundamental. And schools are starting back in Victoria very shortly, in the next, just after the Easter holidays.
Yeah.
And they will go back, I imagine, shortly after that for the other states and territories. So, it's time for people to apply that gender lens and see who is doing the care work at home, who will be preparing that education work. I was talking to someone the other day and, they were saying, I'm not really coping with my 3.5-year-old who's coming in every 5 minutes and wanting to be engaged with me while I'm doing Zoom conferences. What can I do? And one of the answers to that is, regrettably, to increase some screen time for those kids. Well, it costs a bit of money to purchase really great educational apps. that are available on an iPad or on some other device. Where are we thinking through the logic that there are extra expenses for families as they prepare to use technology to, resolve difficult educational issues?
Question without notice, Tanja. What's your sense of how other jurisdictions are dealing with this, with the gender issue as it relates to COVID-19? Are we, particularly with the childcare decision, are we in front of the pack, or are we playing catch up with others?
I think that there are that I think that most jurisdictions are struggling, but there are some really interesting signals and different ways that countries are approaching it. Like in Japan, there was a parenting payment. So there was an acknowledgement that stay-at-home orders were going to have an impact on the role of parenting and education in the home. And so they made a contribution to the costs associated with that. That's the request in the 10 things that we want government to do now, I think that they could do now, is based on that Japanese experience. So that's one example. We really loved the work that has been done by women leaders internationally, and I'm talking about the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister of Denmark, I think her name is Mette Frederiksen, and also the Prime Minister of Norway. All of them did a direct-to-camera address to the children of their country. Right. This is an incredibly stressful time for young people. We are asking young people to become the first ever digital education citizens. It's really exciting, but it's really scary too. Yeah. And we have not had any situation where, the Prime Minister has thought to say, I'm going to do an address. And why is that? Because it's women leaders who've probably got children or who just have that care lens, who know that this is an important dialogue and that would help parents if they were engaged in that. So I think my overall assessment is that we're doing okay on the we're certainly doing a great job in the response around pushing down the rates of COVID-19. I think that we are performing well ahead of the curve in that space, and so I have only congratulatory things to say to government about that. But in terms of stimulus and initiatives that are supporting women and families, I think there's a lot more that we could be doing and that we should be doing in the next couple of months. And I hope and look forward to working with government as it nuts through some of those ideas.
All right, watch this space. We'd love to keep in touch with you as that develops and perhaps provide updates. Perhaps a quick plug before we go for your vlog that you're doing at the moment. Where can people find that and what can they expect to see?
We have got some, in Victoria, we are just so lucky. We have got some world-leading gender and disaster researchers. Dr. Deb Parkinson, who works at the Gender and Disaster Pod, which is based in the northern metropolitan region of Victoria, has been working for the last 10 years looking at the connection between gender and disaster. And she's followed that through since the Black Saturday bushfires. So we're really interested as a sector in the concept of gender and disaster, what we can learn about violence prevention, what happens to gender equality in that space. So we've got a regular weekly e-bulletin that is looking at every single aspect that you could think of with a gender lens of COVID-19, but a whole range of other sort of disaster issues in the state. But we needed some light relief because it's serious stuff, Chris.
Indeed,
we needed some light relief. So we also do a vlog called A Room of Her Own, and that is to bring ourselves into the homes and the worlds of gender equity advocates in Victoria and just let them talk about the challenges of what that feels like. I was the first guinea pig. But so far we've had the amazing writer Karen Pickering, who's the author of About Bloody Time and founder of the Girls on Film Festival, and Shashayla Femme, reflecting on her time being at home and being a single mum. And we've also got Hannah Asafiri, who is the founder of the Moroccan Soup Bar, who is using the time when her business is basically dysfunctional to create meals for all of the essential service workers. So you can pay that forward by purchasing a meal. And we're really pleased to be able to celebrate these amazing Victorian women. And can I just also say, can I thank the VLGA? Can I thank the VLGA for being one of the very early endorsers of our gender equity and COVID-19 statement? Local government, local solutions to violence prevention are absolutely essential. They are essential. The partnerships that have existed between women's health services and the local governments across the state of Victoria have been integral to violence prevention in this state. And so we thank the VLGA for understanding the connection between gender and disaster.
Hear, hear. Thank you for that. I know everyone at the VLGA is thrilled to be associated. Where do we find your vlog, Tanja? Where
www.genvic.org.au.
Fabulous. Great to talk with you. Please keep in touch. Congratulations on the joint statement and the early achievements, but the work is not done, and we look forward to hearing more about how that progresses in the coming weeks and months.
Nice to speak to you.
Great to speak with Tanja Kovac, the consulting CEO of Gender Equity Victoria, on this episode of VLGA Connect. If you'd like to give us your feedback or suggestions for future episodes, please email us at vlga@vlga.org.au. I look forward to seeing you again soon for another VLGA Connect.